Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week I'm joined by 2019 Texas Country Music Association Entertainer of the Year, Curtis Grimes. And Curtis, man, thanks for jumping on with me.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. And before we get too far into this, let's start with, with the Curtis Grimes story. It starts in Texas. You kind of give us the Wikipedia version of growing up in Texas and then how you got into music.
Oh man, I actually grew up playing baseball. That was kind of my thing, and I did regular season, fall ball, select ball, kind of year round. Didn't really do much music growing up. I mean, aside from singing along to the radio, riding around in the truck with my dad, that was pretty much it. Didn't play any instruments, didn't sing in choir, didn't sing in public, and eventually wound up getting a scholarship to go play baseball over in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was a pitcher, and my roommate was on the baseball team, and he had a guitar, and whenever he wasn't around or wasn't playing it, I'd pick it up and mess with it and try to start playing some of those. I was really getting into the whole Texas country red dirt thing at the end of my high school years, and so that's kind of what I dove into, and then that parlayed into trying to write those kind of songs, and I remember getting on the internet, going to countrytabs.com.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, and so then I'd go look and see, how do you play a G? How do you play an A? How do you play a D? And so just kind of taught myself that way. It was before the YouTube era, which probably would have been a little bit easier than bouncing around from web pages. But nonetheless, taught myself to play guitar and started dabbling, writing songs, and just would play for my friends or family, just kind of around the house. Nothing serious, just kind of a fun hobby. And the next year when I moved down to San Marcos to try to go to school at Texas State was when I really kind of started taking it a little bit more serious and just started playing anywhere and everywhere that I could. A lot of open mic nights, a lot of like fraternity or sorority parties, and then kind of pieced together a band. I had a lot of buddies up in Austin. And this is kind of just a very light music friendly environment from New Braunfels, San Marcos up to Austin. But when I was in Austin, I kind of got a fiddle player to start sitting in with me, and then we found a drummer and then a bass player, and lastly we added a lead guitar, and then we had a little band. And we were playing a sorority event once, and my buddy, another friend, had recorded it and put it on YouTube. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm working at a trophy shop in Austin. It's kind of a little side job I was doing, building like soccer trophies or something. And there was a radio commercial that said, "Hey, Kenny Chesney's coming to town." And this was during his Poets and Pirates tour, which at the time it was his 4th or 5th year to be Entertainer of the Year. So the biggest country, it would be like Luke Combs or something right now, like the biggest country tour that year for mainstream radio. And anyways, they had a contest where you sent in a YouTube video and they picked 4 bands, and you did a Battle of the Bands competition, and the winner got a 15-minute opening slot. So we did that, and we wound up winning it, and we played with Kenny Chesney at the Irwin Center in Austin, and that was, I guess, kind of the first legitimate thing that I did, and that kind of sparked the career aspect of doing it, kind of beyond just for fun. And we just kind of rolled with that momentum and buzz, and then 3 years after that, wound up getting on the first season of The Voice, and that was the first time I'd ever gone to California, or Los Angeles rather, and 2, that took kind of my reach, my audience from a local regional Texas act to kind of a commercial nationwide opportunity, and then that parlayed into I got a booking agent, signed on with a booking agent out of that, and got to tap into the publishing world in Nashville. So I started writing songs with, big name cats, and just really started growing, I guess. And that's kind of how it all happened. It was really one of those things where I was kind of blessed to have the talent and the ability to do music, even though I hadn't really used that growing up. And then just trying to make the most of it now. And
so let's jump back a little bit. You picked up the guitar in college, you built your band from there, and then this Kenny Chesney thing. I mean, it's one of those things that you and I grew up at about the same time. Going through that time in high school, it felt like there was kind of a battle of the bands on the radio all the time. I mean, when you were in high school, was it ever even something that you had considered, even thought about, like, hey, that'd be kind of cool to do one day?
It wasn't, but kind of looking back now, my grandfather on my mom's side was in a hayride, Louisiana hayride band. So we would go, once a month to the concerts, but I never really had any interest, and I was kind of all in with baseball. So it was just, we're going to go to the hayride and watch our grandpa sing and play, and that was kind of it. They had the musical equipment laying around. They gave me a guitar for like my 12th birthday, and I played it like twice, and then it collected dust in the closet. But it just wasn't something that interested me. I was like I said, my world revolved around baseball, and that's consumed most of my childhood.
So then,
I know what I was going to say. You talk about the radio. So whenever I think when I got into the whole Texas Red Dirt thing, it was when Randy Rogers, Wade Bowen, Kevin Fowler, like those guys were just kind of this underground thing. So they weren't getting played on the radio. So it was kind of like the cool thing to do was go to whatever, Napster, LimeWire, whatever, and download these bootleg versions of these guys that were kind of, a cool thing that wasn't getting played on the radio. So I think that was kind of attractive too, because it was kind of like a reachable thing. It was attainable. It wasn't the big like Nashville machine, just kind of untouchable thing. I don't know.
Question. So with the Red Dirt Country, I mean, you kind of picked that up yourself and are kind of recognized regionally for it now. I mean, in the 2019 Entertainer of the Year for the Texas Country Music Association. What was that like last year? I mean, not just Entertainer of the Year, but you also had a Song of the Year for them. I mean, that's...
And it was nice to be recognized and to feel kind of appreciated for what you do, because a lot of times in this industry, in this music business, you're fighting for a spot. So there can be times where you feel like, man, whether you're underrated or whether you're not getting the recognition, and that a lot of times can kind of fuel the fire and kind of give you something to work towards. So anytime you get recognized or honored in something like that is pretty rewarding in itself. But I'm just thankful, man. I'm thankful that, one, I get to do this, I guess for a living, for a career, for my livelihood, and it allows me to spend quite a bit of time with my family. As ironic as that sounds, we tour more Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then if we go out of state or we go on certain runs, it can be a couple weeks out. But for the most part, I'm home Sunday through Thursday at lunch. So I'm thankful for that, and I don't know, it's a cool thing to be able to do, and I'm always thankful for that I get to do this, and I don't know, man. I try not to let it get I try to take it for what it is. I try not to let
Definitely.
that stuff get to my head, because at the end of the day, there's no difference between me and the people on the other side of the stage. And I mean that honestly, because when I moved to San Marcos, I was that fan on the other that was in the crowd, going to the shows, going to the live concerts, looking at the artists, watching their hands to see what they're playing on the guitar, and I never forget that, and so I never take for granted the fact that I do get to do this. So that makes those award shows and awards just that much sweeter, is knowing that it wasn't about 12 years ago that I was just a fan of music, and I've been very blessed and very fortunate to have the career I've had and get to this point, and then to be recognized for it is just icing on the cake. Because even if there were no number one songs or no awards or any of that stuff, like, just to be able to do this is pretty awesome in itself. So I don't know, I'm thankful for all of that stuff.
And as a country fan, not just for myself, but I know a lot of people appreciate that mindset. I mean, you have some guys out there that kind of start off like that, and then as soon as they start getting some success, it becomes about them. And I think it's really refreshing and honest to hear, from a guy like you that has had some commercial success to still be understanding of what that feeling is like. And it kind of leads right into the next question that I had for you, which is, with country music as segmented kind of as it is now, I mean, there's so many different subgenres out there. You've kind of straddled that line, I would say, between like red dirt country and Christian country. And I mean, honestly, when you start looking at like, your style of music and the songs that you write, it's pretty clear that you're not just some guy out there trying to, make money doing this. You're out there because it's passionate. But what was it that kind of drew you to those two genres? Obviously, with the red dirt country, you just kind of came about at the time that was kind of the underground cool thing to listen to.
And to be honest, if we go back I grew up in a pretty godly home. We were at church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, most Wednesday nights. So I had a pretty solid foundation. And then when I got into high school, kind of into that point where I started listening to that, getting into the Texas Red Dirt stuff, I kind of started backsliding a little bit, going out, partying on the weekends, and kind of getting into that scene, getting into that content. Those are a lot of those songs. So when I started, doing it as an artist, then I really dove into that lifestyle, really dove into what I thought that you do if you were a Texas country artist, and wrote the kind of songs that I thought that you write if you're a Texas country artist. And I didn't really think about how I was living, and two, what those lyrics were saying to people, what was going on the other end of it. And man, I started having a lot of conviction. I really did. And I'm thankful for that, because it really made me kind of think about how hypocritical I had been as a Christian and living this lifestyle. And I felt like God had given me this opportunity as a baseball player. Music was irrelevant, but like, I feel like I've been given this talent, this opportunity, this platform, this ability to reach people and influence people, and I felt like I was wasting it for as far as the greater purpose of what I feel like we should be doing as Christians, sharing the gospel and telling others about Jesus. So when I hit that point where I was like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to quit the Texas country thing and just go lead worship at a church, or what am I going to do? Because I didn't want to not sing. I mean, I didn't want to waste the talent, but then again, I didn't want to submerge myself in that lifestyle either. So then I started looking at it as, what, you've been put here for a reason, so make the most of this opportunity. And so then I started looking at my music as kind of the foot in the door for a greater purpose. and I started looking at these venues, bars, honky tonks, and everywhere as more of a mission field, than just a workplace. And then I started thinking about the lyrics of my songs. Like up until then, I would cuss in a song and not even think twice. And then my mom was listening to my live album with my nephew one day, and she was telling me she had to skip a couple songs, and I was like, man, that's sad that my mom can't even listen to certain songs with my nephew. And so then that really started making me think about cussing. And then we had a young lady who was actually our athletic director's daughter at my high school. She got killed by a drunk driver. And so then that started making me think about that aspect of my lyrics. I have a song, Irresponsible. And so it just was kind of really heavy on my mind, that how would I feel if I knew that kid was jamming that song and then went and got in the truck and then went and killed that girl. I don't know or think that he was, but it just planted that thought in my mind. And so from that time on, man, I've been very careful about what the content of my music is, kind of what the purpose is. And I've always been a fan of the traditional sound. I've always liked that kind of neo-traditional, the late 80s, early 90s sound. And fiddle, steel guitar is just what I think of when I think of country music. I like Alan Jackson, George Strait. That's what we would sing in the truck riding around. And my grandparents were into a lot of your Conways, your George Jones, your just solid country sound. And so I knew that going forward, that was the sound I was going for. And then the content was going to be either faith-based straight up, like Born to Die, or it's going to at least be positive. There's going to be something that somebody listen to and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I get something out of this that's going to be beneficial to my life and my well-being, as opposed to just talking about partying up on a weekend and, fulfilling my fleshly desires for the night. And all of those songs that I did write like that, and everything that I went through along the way, just kind of built my testimony. I feel like that built that ability for me to connect with people without looking at them in a condemning or judgmental manner, because I've been there. I've literally been right there. I've lived that lifestyle, and I don't look down on anybody from it. I just would like to see them, live a better life, live for the Lord as opposed to living for themselves. That's what would make me most happy when I see somebody, getting tanked at a bar or something. But that experience that I went through to get where I am now really just eliminated any barrier between me. Because a lot of people will get turned off by if a preacher walks in the room. A lot of people won't listen to somebody that they think can't relate to them at all. So I have that ability to go in there, have the stage for 90 minutes. I'll play my songs. I'll get to insert some faith-based elements. I'll get to share my testimony a little bit without beating them over the head with the Bible, and quoting verses all day. And that's kind of how I treat every opportunity I get. And even this, for example, we do an interview to talk about music, and it opens the door where I can talk about, my faith and sharing the gospel without being preachy,
Oh, absolutely. And kind of just looking back through your discography, you can almost see kind of when that shift happened. But you put out an album that was like a year and a half ago called Faith-Based Country Volume 1. And I've been, I'll just be honest, I've been kind of struggling with how to introduce my son to that sort of stuff. And
yes, sir.
I played that album for him this morning on the way to school, and he sang along to almost every song on that album because it sounded like the music that he, gets to listen to on a regular basis. but it was a message that he understood. And as a parent, I appreciate that type of thing. So being able to just turn something on like that is absolutely great.
Absolutely, and there's nothing like that. My little girl, every night she wants me to sing "Jesus Loves Me" or "I Saw the Light," and you're right, man. That just makes you proud as a parent when they do something like that. And that gospel album was actually kind of a side project that turned into a ministry. I was posting videos every Monday, doing either the gospel song or I would do like a modern worship song too, thrown in the mix, and people started commenting about would I record a gospel album. So I would write back, yeah, if you help me pay for it. Well, then that kind of parlayed into me starting a GoFundMe, and we raised enough money to not only record it, but there was money left over, and it's not something I wanted to profit off of, because my goal was just to record an album to get out there, to do some good in the world. And so with that leftover money, I started up a ministry where I go and buy Bibles in bulk, and we'll have a stack of them at the merch table every night. I've bought them by the cases, and we'll send them out with mission groups. And so that kind of parlayed into this ministry that music has given me the opportunity to do. And last year, I think we went through 5,000 Bibles. So in 1 year of just kind of like a side project with from one person, I feel like that was a pretty good start for something cool. That just started as a little side project, recording a gospel album, and all the money from the sales, streams, and royalties go back into it. Or anytime we play like a church or faith-based event, I'll put that money into the ministry as well. And it's just another avenue to reach people.
Well, and you call it Volume 1. That means there's got to be a Volume 2 at some point. You know that, right?
That's my goal. So we recorded that one last year. In a perfect world, I would love to record one every 2 years. And so that's why I said Volume 1, because that's the intent. And we did 8 songs on purpose. 8 songs is a pretty good a solid block. It's two recording sessions, and just kind of we snuck in a few medleys where we were able to kind of add multiple songs into one track. So that was another way to stretch it out a little bit. But yeah, the goal is to record 8 more next year. Would be an awesome timeline if we could stick to that.
Well, I know that I'm looking forward to that. You were kind enough to send over a couple of songs to share with everybody, just so they can kind of hear your style. And the first one that I've got here, it's called Still. You put it out last year. Give us the story behind where this song came from.
All right, so that's one song that I didn't personally write, but I was going in to meet with Trent Willman. He's produced my last few records, and just thoroughly enjoy working with him. He's been very, very helpful to my whole career, man, and just value his opinion and ability to work with new artists. And so I'm thankful that I was able to work with him. But we went in there, and I was playing him songs that I had written, since the last record. And he was going to play me some outside cuts, just because we try to record mostly songs that I've written, and then if we can find just a song that I think's a undeniable hit, that has to sound like something I would have written, and has to be genuine to me. It has to be. I can't just cut some random song because I think it's a good song if it has nothing to do, about being a firefighter or something that I can't relate to. And so this was Cody Johnson Cole. He said, all right, Cody didn't pass on this song, and so I thought it would fit good with what you're doing, and he played it for me. And it was the Casey Beathard ride. Casey Beathard, Kenneth White, and Doug McCormick. It's a pretty heavy hitter songwriters, and the only reason Cody had access to those was because he has the major label deal, right? Somebody like me, original independent artist, I don't have access to that vault, if you will. So nonetheless, Cody did. Trent got the song and he played it for me, and it was all of those. It sounded like something that I would have written. It kind of told my story about where I am right now, as far as kind of going against the grain a little bit and just kind of sticking to your roots and sticking to your guns. And then when it talks about that second verse, I'm just my father's son, like the one on Calvary's Hill. And that's probably a line that sneaks by a lot of people. You don't just sit and dwell on it. But I thought it was cool how they inserted that element of just kind of what I stand for. And the other thing I changed was, it said originally it had a wintergreen skull ring, and I changed that to leather-bound King James to kind of fit what I'm doing with my ministry and all.
And that one just slid right in there too, because it sounds good.
It did, and so that's how I got that song, and then Trent got it approved, and so went in and cut it, and I cut 4 songs last February, and for me, it was the just no-brainer radio lead single, just to kind of set the tone for what I felt like my music and my just kind of, I guess, MO, if you will, right now is, and we did, and it wound up doing very well for us. So I'm always thankful that radio has continued to play my singles when we send them out. It's been, I guess, going on about 10 years now, and none of that stuff's guaranteed. People say, "Oh, you've had blah 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 success, radio success." So if you send out a song, it's automatically going to go to the top, and that's not the case. And I don't feel that way at all, because at some point that's going to stop happening. So I just am very thankful that they're still playing my music and allowing people to hear it kind of through the radio waves and over that reach.
Well, here, let's let everybody take a listen to it right now. This one's called Still by Curtis Grimes.
Broken ball cap, worn out boots, leather-bound King James, redneck roots, Brown and 243 rifle, zip code 33 rod and reel. That's who I am. Still American made, homegrown proud, old school country, new school crowd, raised up in a small town, grounded on blue collar dollar bills. That's who I am. Still this old world spin around like a top, ain't throwing me off anytime real soon. 'Cause there's something about sticking to your guns while everybody's singing a different tune. Yeah, change will come and go, but I'm settling and digging the feel of who I am. Still it don't matter if all my hopes and dreams take off flying on silver wings. Just my father's son, like the one on Calvary's Hill, is all I am. Still, yeah, the world's spinning around like a top, ain't throwing me off anytime real soon. 'Cause there's something about sticking to your guns while everybody's singing a different tune. Yeah, change will come and go, but I'm settling and digging the feel of who I am. Still passed down through my daddy's rowdy rebel stubborn will for who I am still. Yeah, that's who I am.
Okay, guys, that one was called Still by Curtis Grimes. And Curtis, where can people find your music? Not just where they can stream it, but is there somewhere they can actually buy it? I'm one of those old school guys that actually likes to support the art.
I think you can still buy it on iTunes. I think that's still a thing, or Google Play for the Android users. But yeah, I've always had the mindset of I don't care how people listen to my music. I just appreciate the fact that they do, because there's so many artists and so many different options, and you're almost just competing for someone's time. That 3 minutes that they have, you look at something like Spotify. I look at that as a blessing for people like myself, because it puts you on the same level, the same accessibility as your Luke Combs, your Luke Bruns, your Blake Sheltons, and that hasn't always been the case. Back in when I was growing up, Alan Jackson, George Strait, that's whose music you listen to because it's on the radio, or whose CD or cassette you could buy at Walmart. And now everybody is kind of on a level playing field. So as much as people debate about the lack of whatever royalties we get paid, I just appreciate the fact that it's accessible for every artist. So I'm thankful when people do listen to my music, and I don't care how you do it. I just appreciate you doing it. And yeah, it's everywhere. That nowadays I think I listen to just as much music on YouTube, as weird as that sounds, as anything.
That's a good place now.
It really is. It really is.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your experience on The Voice. You were on there for the first season, which I'm guessing is a little bit different than how they do it now. Now they've worked out some of the bugs since they've been on for forever now. But I want to talk about, how did you get on that show to begin with? Did somebody find you? Did you go to an audition? How'd that work?
So I was on my way back from the Texas Music Seminar in Houston, and I was living in Austin at the time, and my manager called me and said, "Hey, I just got an email about this show. It's a singing competition. It's going to be on NBC. I don't know anything about it. It's starting up." And this was when American Idol was like it. It was dominating. So, initially you're like, well, it's going to be second to American Idol, but whatever. If I can get on there and get some exposure, then, that's marketing and advertising that you can't buy. And so the problem was I had my mom, I was going to play my mom's 50th birthday party. And it was say 5 or 6 hours away from where they were holding the auditions, because this would have been 3 days later or something. So he called them and asked if I could get an appointment, if you will, early so I could go do both. And they said, yeah. So I didn't have to do the whole all-day line. I literally showed up at 8 a.m., and I got to go in there and sing my 3 songs, and then they told me to come back tomorrow. Well, I still had to go drive 5 hours, play my mom's 50th birthday party, turn around, drive back to Austin, and be back up there for round 2. And so did that, and then they handed everybody a piece of paper. It was like, thank you, if we like you, we'll call you. If not, thanks. And so I didn't hear anything for a few weeks, so I just assumed that nothing was happening. And then we were on the road to, a Lubbock or something, and I was filling up the van with gas, and I had an incoming call from a Los Angeles number. So I answered it, and they pretty much said, "Hey, this is so-and-so at The Voice. You made the cut. We're going to fly you out here next Thursday." It's in a week, going to LA. So we had to cancel the next 3 months of shows, engagements, whatever we had.
Oh, wow.
And just kind of drop everything to go do it. Because you didn't know. You might be out there a week. You might be out there the whole season. But still, we had to cancel everything, which that would be the challenge of doing something like that now. Because I don't know if I could just cancel 3 months of shows to just take a chance. But at that time I could, and we did, and I'm thankful we did. So I get out there, and then of course there's another round of cuts, and then at that point they tell you, oh, you're going to sing Hillbilly Bone. And I'm like, I started laughing. And they're like, what, you don't like Blake Shelton? I was like, no, but if I was going to pick a Blake Shelton song, this would not be my first choice. I would pick one that maybe I could sing a little bit better. And, I mean, they don't care. You're kind of take it or leave it at that point. So I had to sing Hillbilly Bone. And I was fortunate that CeeLo turned around and kind of, I guess, sealed my purpose of doing it, and I got to be on the show, and then I got to stick around till there were 8 people left. So it wound up being a pretty good experience, and I learned so much. That's the first time I'd ever been with an actual vocal coach, not CeeLo, like the people behind the scenes, the real vocal coaches, and just learned so much about the industry, the business aspect of it. Because up until then, it was just rent a PA, set it up, sing songs, tear it down, load the van. But then that introduced me to the business aspect and also reality TV and just kind of how that whole world works. And I don't know, it was definitely a career just booster exponentially.
Well, and that show's it's not set up like American Idol is, or really, I think, even how most people kind of assume. I mean, you're not in there with just a bunch of people that have never had any success before. I mean, there's people on there that have had record deals prior to this one that are trying to earn a different one. I mean, was that different trying to compete with all different groups?
It was, and that too, because people talk. So we knew the winner of our season, Javier Colon. He had already had like 2 major label deals. He was lead singer of Derek Truck's band. Like he was an established professional. So you got somebody like that, all the way down to a 16-year-old girl that had only sang at her high school talent contest.
Oh wow!
And so it was a very broad playing field. And then too, you realize like they cast. The casting aspect of it. Like they have people out seeking talent before they roll into town to do the walk-up auditions. And so it's kind of I would say more of those people make it than the walk-ups. And then, you'll have the walk-ons, if you will, if you're comparing to sports, that do make it. And I don't know, those are the ones that are special to me because they're the ones that had to stand in line and really had to stick out, that much more than the ones that the talent agents had an eye on to begin with.
So, I mean, coming from that show and obviously, getting the jump start that you did from that show, is it something that you still, when the new season comes out, do you go back and watch it, or is it, it's just reality TV at this point?
Man, that experience completely ruined reality TV for me. And not just on The Voice, not just singing competitions, but everything, because it's hard to unsee, like the hours you're sitting there shooting the same scene or shooting one scene for 3 days later and going to a wardrobe and, basically checking out your clothes and then at the end of the day taking them back and then coming them back the next day and you're re-wearing those clothes to go shoot the second part of this scene. And so it really ruined reality TV for me. But when I got home, I watched our entire season from top to bottom just so I could appreciate the production aspect, because it's different
definitely.
When you see that side versus the reality of it. You kind of get numb to it when you're on the other side of the camera. But when you step back, you could really see how great of a show it was, how well it was produced. And one of the neatest things for me was the fact that Mark Burnett, You know, I'd watched Survivor. I'd watched Amazing Race. I'd watch these shows, and it pops up a Mark Burnett production. Well, Mark Burnett was walking around ground level up to us before the show. Just, hey, how are you doing? Are you cool? Everything good? Can I get you anything? And that really surprised me, because I would expect Mark Burnett to be in the booth somewhere, if even on set. So that was really cool how hands-on he was whenever we were filming the thing in real time. And I got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of cool artists from different genres all over. We would kind of be, confined to the hotel or that area. So you'd have somebody like myself sitting there with the guitar, and you have somebody else with the cajon, or you'd have someone with the ukulele and someone with the piano, and just going and doing a little like kumbaya, little jam session was pretty awesome, because it was people from all over, from all different levels of their career, and I don't know, it was really cool.
Well, so how did that, moving on past the voice, obviously you learned the business side, and then, you sat down with some of these people just from all walks of life. How'd that kind of change your view of what you were doing and how you wanted to accomplish it?
Honestly, it opened my eyes to a much bigger world, much bigger entity than the Texas country scene, because it's very easy when you're surrounded by people that just, I don't know, answer or confine themselves to this scene, that there's a lot of other music going on out there that people don't even know about this scene. And then there's a lot bigger world out there too, a lot bigger audience than just, the people we see at the Texas country concerts, even when it's a big festival, So that was a very eye-opening thing, to be able to see a bigger picture for music instead of just wanting to be the biggest Texas country act there was or whatever.
Well, here, let's kind of shift into that, into where you went. You still write all of your own music. You put out an album in, I think it was 2016, called Undeniably Country. Is that when that came out? Give or take?
It was something like that. And that was the first record that I'll say I had, aside from, we'll call my very first album, which was my, startup band, recording a CD so we'd have merch to sell at a show. But as far as legit studio album, that was the first one that I had total control over, paid for, released by myself. Like, I didn't even have management. Whenever we jump back to when I said I kind of had a lot of conviction and changed my focus, around that time, I lost my management, my booking agent, and just kind of was back to square one, doing everything myself. And the reason for that, the biggest reason, is the commercial aspect. Like they're counting beans, and somebody that says, I don't want to do drinking, partying songs. I want to just do positive, faith-based stuff that's traditional country sounding. That's not what somebody at a big management company or label wants to hear when they're trying to push you in a commercial direction, whether it be mainstream radio or, at the time, a Sirius XM on the highway or something. So I get it, but regardless, I kind of was back to square one. So Undeniably Country was really my establishing album for what I wanted to do with music, and I wanted that album to reflect my musical taste, and also just kind of me as an artist and the direction I wanted to go. And so I released it by myself. Like I said, didn't even have a management, and it turned out very well for me. And that kind of lined the rest of the of the stuff that came after it up as well.
Well, and you did something kind of cool with that album. You released a commentary after it, which isn't something that we typically see. What was the idea behind that?
Honestly, that's when the Spotify commentary things were kind of a cool thing to do because it allowed little 30-second to minute-long snippets, which bumped up and translated into streams. That's why it was recommended to do. But it gave me, personally, the opportunity to kind of sell the backstory because it was such a shift from my previous records. So it allowed me to explain it a little bit instead of just throwing everybody a curveball saying, leaving questions.
Well, and it really does kind of give some insight into what the idea was behind the song. But what does your typical songwriting process look like? I mean, are you one of those guys that's old school with the pen and paper, or are you taking notes on your iPhone? A little bit of everything.
Nowadays, I'll typically get an idea, or just be humming something, and I'll go to my notes on my phone and I'll jot it down. And then next time I go to Nashville, or next time I sit down with my guitar to write, when it's time to start thinking about a recording, I'll pull out my notes and I'll go down through there. And there's also voice memos. I'll probably do just as many voice memos where I'll just record a snippet and then revisit those when I get more of a formal writing arena. But for me, it kind of starts there with an idea, and then we kind of roll with it. And by now, I have a handful of artists that I like to write with, just because I know the style I'm going to do, I know the content I'm going to do. So whenever you can get in rooms that with guys that are on the same page, it just kind of saves everybody a lot of wasted time. Because I know if I were to go sit down in a room with somebody that pulled out a little beatbox thing, like, that would be a waste of time for my record. I'm not going to cut it. Now, I'll write it, put my name on it, and I would be happy for Luke Bryan to cut it, but I'm not going to cut it. So when it comes time for writing for my record, that's a useless write. So I'll team up with guys that I know are going to stay in the traditional country vein, and just kind of know what my purpose is with music, and just kind of where my faith is with everything. And it's pretty productive. So from a combination of their ideas they bring to the table and my voice memos and notes, it's usually pretty productive when we sit down and write.
Man, it sure seems like it. We've got your newest single here that just came out at the beginning of the year. It's called River Road Dream. How did this song come about?
Hot off the press. That's the one I actually wrote with Trent. Earlier I was bragging about Trent. I would say he's one of the best songwriters in Nashville, and a lot of people don't realize that. They may be familiar with him as an artist, from several years back with Beer Man or On Again, Off Again Tonight. And then, of course, he's produced all these Cody Johnson records that have done phenomenal. And in working with him, I've got the opportunity to write with him quite a bit. And when it was coming time to write for this project, we were talking about kind of my story, I guess, revisiting, and a big part of my life was, or especially music, my music life was spent down in San Marcos trying to. I was supposed to be going to school at Texas State, but I was really floating the river and running up to Austin to hang out with my buddies. So
that sounds like more fun, anyways.
Well. It was, but I didn't do very well at school as a result of it that first go around. And so I really liked floating the river. And I remember I'd be floating on, like, say, a Tuesday. There'd be nobody on there. Everybody else had, like, jobs in school and stuff, and I'd shoot through there pretty quickly. And I remember there'd be these pieces of property that were they weren't manicured. They weren't mowed or weed eated or didn't have any fancy brick along the water's edge. And I was just thinking, these people pay a lot of money to just let this property sit here and go to waste. And I was like, man, it would be really awesome to come to own a piece of property here one of these days. And so that was just kind of like, I don't know, an aspiration or dream, if you will, to one day have a spot on the river. And I was telling him about that, and we just kind of talked about the struggle. You know, when the older you get, the more life gets in the way, and then those things you want to do just kind of get further and further away. And then it's nice if you're ever blessed or fortunate enough to actually attain it. And that's kind of where the mindset of this song came from. It's just kind of having that dream that you work towards, and just gives you a little bit of hope and something to work towards. And so this is a song that I did write and was definitely my story, or at least based on my story. So it was nice to have it be the second single off of the next project, especially coming off one that I didn't write. You know, like if we're going to squeeze one in there that was an outside cut, then I have to bookend it with songs that I wrote just to kind of stay on top of it. So I wrote the single we had before, Still, and I wrote this one. So.
Well, here, let's let everybody take a listen to this one. It's called River Road Dream by Curtis Grimes.
Donnie drives a truck working on pumps from Wimberley to Dallas. It's sure a lot of miles, but the pay outweighs the bad. Sarah takes shifts, saving her tips at the old 290 diner. Yeah, just to make rent takes every last nickel they have. On a Saturday night, they'll take a little drive to town. Sip on a long neck, listen to the band, and two-step around. It don't seem like much, just a drop in the bucket, but their eyes are on a waterfront lawn with a cabin and a cedarwood swing. Right now things are rough, but the thing that keeps them going is knowing for long they're gonna have their own little old river road dream. Most people pass that acre and a half and never even see it. Oh, it's hidden in mesquite and overgrown patch of weeds. But with sunburned sweat, a whole lot of love, and a Briggs and Stratton mower, yeah, they can both see the heaven it's gonna be. Now it don't seem like much, just a drop in the bucket, but their eyes are on a waterfront lawn with a cabin and a cedarwood swing. Right now things are rough, but the thing that keeps them going is knowing for long they're gonna have their own little old river road dream. Hey! No, it don't seem like much, just a drop in the bucket, but their eyes are on a waterfront lawn with a cabin and a cedarwood swing. Right now things are rough, but the thing that keeps them going is knowing for long they're gonna have their own little old river road dream. Good luck and God willing, they're gonna have their own little old river road dream. River road dream.
And that one again, River Road Dream by Curtis Grimes. And Curtis, where can people keep up with what you've got going on? What's your social media and what's your website?
Oh, I was going to say, so if you hear the heavy Alan Jackson influence in that song, then that really, really kind of puts you where my idea of country music is these days. Regardless of what's going on, man, that's what it's supposed to sound like.
It does. I mean, I think that encapsulates your real sound in one song.
It really does. But no, yeah, my Twitter's Curtis Grimes, Instagram's Curtis Grimes Music. I guess Facebook's out there too, and those are pretty much the big three that I stay on top of. It's hard. It's hard for me to maintain my social media presence and content when I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. You know, I try to.
Man, you're a busy guy.
I try to make it a point to spend time with my family as much as I can, and that at times that can conflict with hanging out on social media all day. But I don't know. We try to juggle it around, and yeah, like I said earlier, the music is out there everywhere. People listen to music these days, and CurtisGrimes.com is my website, and hopefully we can head out there to the far west coast and play some shows here.
Hey,
in the next
I'd appreciate
year.
that. But
we're going to be in Tucson. We're going to be in Tucson here, which is it's on the way. It's halfway there.
It is.
It's halfway there, coming up in a few months. So maybe we can keep going next trip.
There you go. I like it. So we end every show the same way. It's called the Final Four. It's probably the 4 toughest questions that I'm asking you this whole time, just because it makes you think. Okay.
Oh no! All right. Well,
Okay.
I'll try not to ramble too long on these.
No, it's all good. So here we go. The first one. What's your favorite place that you've ever played?
I would have to say Green Hall, because it was that venue that I would go to consistently in college, that really imprinted live music and that old dance hall feel, and just kind of really established a headlining, opportunity to work towards. And then we go in there. We've played it several times, sold it out a few times, and it still holds a very special place in my heart.
Okay, how about this one? What's the best show that you've ever been to that you weren't playing at?
Oh, man.
I told you they're tough.
Really is. That Kenny Chesney show was pretty awesome. And I think it's because that was the first big, mainstream act production show that I'd ever been to in my life. And it just blew me away. I was used to the Texas country guys, even the top ones, and it was just another element. It was just another level. And aside from that one, I'll say a close second will probably be I got to go see an event where hosted by Michael W. Smith, and Chris Tomlin was the headliner at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, and that one was special on another level, just kind of a more spiritual, just really intimate level, and kind of a historic place, the original, the home of the Grand Ole Opry. So those two completely different environments, but we're kind of
those are both good picks. Okay, how about this one? If you could play anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
It's like my staple bucket list. Obviously, it would be cool to travel the globe and go play somewhere, across the world, which I did get to go to the UK and kind of do a stretch of acoustic tour shows over there. So that was really awesome. And we played in France once. But as far as just that thing, like on Gone in 60 Seconds, Eleanor, the Mustang GT at the end, Billy Bob's is that staple venue. It would seal the deal on my Texas country bucket list. And then I'm sure I would bounce onto some extravagant foreign thing after that.
Billy Bob's is a good pick. That's a good pick there. Okay, last one. If you could share the stage with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be?
Man, I would have to probably say George Strait, just because that is the defining artist of country music for me, of my generation. I think it would be really cool to go back and see Keith Whitley live. I really enjoy his sound, and I feel like he had so much potential. So that would be a cool one as well. But if I had to pick one, I would probably go with George Strait, and that's probably a pretty cliche answer, but it's not a bad one.
But it's the truth, yeah. I mean,
it is, right?
Well, Curtis, man, thank you so much for jumping on here. I appreciate it. Good luck on have some great shows here coming up as you're going around Texas, and hopefully we'll see you up in this neck of the woods sometime soon.
All righty, man. I appreciate you having me very, very much, and you have a great night or day as well, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. And guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast, the country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Curtis Grimes.